Welcome back to MVM. Today we have a preview for a brand new game from Mythic and Lucky Duck Games. It is a joint venture set in the world of Joan of Arc. It is called Time of Legends Destinies, and it is a 1 to 3 player game that encompasses several different campaigns.
Yeah, this is a narrative-driven game, and it's going to use, of course, the Joan of Arc universe, but also some of the mechanics that you might be familiar with Lucky Duck's Chronicles of Crime, where you're using a device to actually scan some things to learn a little bit about what you're trying to do.
Yep, so we have an iPad set up here in front of us. Everything that you do in the game is going to be both physical and virtual with the iPad or any other kind of electronic device you have. You're going to be using one of the 3 characters per campaign. Now, each of the campaigns that you play is going to be vastly different, plus it's going to have a new set of heroes in each of them. Each of these heroes has a destiny. That's how the name is derived from. And on the back of the cards, it is kept secret what your destiny is. However, you have a story that kind of describes your character, the narrative arc within that particular campaign, and then 2 possible ways that you need to figure out your destiny. But it doesn't give you that verbatim.
No, it doesn't. In fact, I'm the deserter, and I could tell you what's on the back of my card, but I'm not allowed to. In fact, that is the only closed information in the game. Everything else that happens in the game is going to be out for every player at the table, but only you will know what's on the back of your card, and this is where it tells you what you're trying to achieve.
So to give you guys a little bit of spoiler information, the very first campaign involves a werewolf that is in the town of Centily. Now, your objective is to, according to your destiny, try to either convert that werewolf or possibly kill it, and each of us have our own ways of undoing that.
Yeah, and you don't really know what your destinies are. It could be anything. It could be very unrelated to that werewolf. We don't want to spoil anything more, but it really makes it interesting when you're looking at the back of these characters and thinking, okay, I've got to figure this out. And at the very beginning of the game, you kind of have little to no idea how you're going to go about doing that, so you kind of have to explore this map that's out in front of you in almost like a point-and-click adventure style of way.
Let's talk about the actual components, because that will better explain the game itself. We have a map set up, and the map is going to be set up according to the app itself. It's going to tell you which one of the different map tiles to use. Typically, you're going to start on a very central location with all the different characters with some surrounding locations. So these are kind of act like fog of war in a game. You don't know what they are, however, you can kind of see an outline of those areas, and you'll be talking to people in the game, and they'll give you some pointers, like maybe go to the woods to the south, and you'll see the woods physically. But until you go to that location, you won't know exactly what is there. Also, it's going to tell you some maybe points of interest and some new characters to inflect on those particular map tiles. We have our 3 starting characters here because the app tells us to put them there. We have a blacksmith that's in his own blacksmith area, and then we have 2 points of interest. One is an inn and one is an abandoned house. The app at the beginning of the game will also tell you how to set up your skill tree. On each of the player boards, you have 3 different skills. You have intelligence, you have dexterity, and you have power. And in the game, you're going to be doing checks at various times depending upon those particular skills.
Yeah, and the way these work is really interesting because you're not just going to have a certain marker on that scale. You're actually going to have a few different markers on each of those tracks, and those markers are going to represent the successes you might have when you roll against that total number. So for example, I have a 5 and an 8 on my intellect scale. So if I roll an 8 or higher, that means 2 successes for me. And the cool thing is throughout the game, there's going to be methods that you can add more markers to this using experience. And every player is also going to have some dice on their player board. You've got 2 main dice, these are the bigger ones, and then 3 effort dice. The main dice are going to be dice that you can roll for every skill check, and you get those back every single time. The effort ones are ones you can choose to expend when you roll them, but those are kind of a bit on a cooldown until the next time you want to roll.
And you'll get one of those back at the start of each of your turns, and the app will remind you in order to take those back. Also, the last thing I want to talk about are the cards in the game. There's a number of different cards for each of the different scenarios. These cards are going to be able to be purchased or found in the game. There's a number of different vendors that you'll be able to encounter, or just citizens, and they'll create market stacks where you can interact with those characters and buy those with the gold that you've earned. Also, there's a number of different cards that you can't buy, and those are noticed by this black symbol in the upper right-hand corner. These have to be found within the game. The other thing you're going to notice is a lot of these cards have abilities across the bottom, or their abilities are going to raise your skills or introduce more skills on your player board, or they're going to be able to be discarded to be used at a particular time. Each of the items also has a QR code on them. So as you meet people in the game, you can actually scan these and interact with them and possibly give them to players in order to progress the story.
Yeah, in fact, whenever you're interacting with someone, you might be able to ask them about literally anything that's on the table that has a QR code. You can ask them about an axe that you just picked up. They might not say much, but they might say something. You can even ask them about yourself because there's a QR code on your character. And that's going to sort of end up revealing some of your destiny to that character because they will effectively comment on that.
So once you've set up the game according to the campaign, you're going to give the device to the starting player. The first thing that's going to inform you is to refresh one of your effort dice. Then you get to move. You don't have to move, but you can. Moving is one of two different things. You can move into an unexplored territory, simply flipping it over, or move across two explored territory tiles. Once you're done moving, then you get to interact. And by interacting, you're simply going to click on the device, one of the different points of interest or characters in that location. So in the starting area, I can either interact with the inn, the abandoned house, or the blacksmith. Once you click on that, it's going to give you a list of possible things that you can do. And it's up to you to make that decision. There's a variety of different things. There's ones where you can talk to them, you can give them coin, you could possibly scan a card, or you can do a skill check in order to perform some kind of feat in that location.
Yeah, every interaction begins with those points of interest. And like Jeremy just said, then it kind of opens up. And sometimes some branching events may take place. Again, we don't want to spoil anything, but a lot of different things can happen when you take your turn.
As a quick example, if I choose to interact with this abandoned house, it gives me the option either to break the door using my power skill in order to get in, or to possibly scan one of my cards that I have. So maybe I have an axe or I have a key, they can gain entry to that area. Again, this is a game, it's like a puzzle. As you play the game, you're going to be discovering new things and then using those things that you find to interact with other things in the game.
Yeah, and what's really cool is you may be thinking that you're not paying attention when other players are taking their turn, but that is not at all the case. In fact, you need to be listening to what they're doing because you might overhear a conversation they're having with a character that gives you a clue about something you might be looking for or a direction that you might want to take on your turn.
And that's extremely important because as the game plays out, when it is your turn, it is your job to read those descriptions on the device so that everyone is informed of the progress that's taking place. So you may be interacting with a spot on the board that introduces new characters, and you need to know what those characters are because it could be something that's tied very specifically to your destiny.
Yeah, the other important thing that's going to happen when you're interacting throughout the game is you're going to be gaining some experience. We mentioned this earlier. All the experience you gain are going to be in the form of these little experience tokens. And at any time during your turn, you can spend those experience tokens to add potential successes to any of your tracks. As you see across the top of the board here, there are different numbers of experience you have to spend to add successes below. So if I spent 4 experience, I could add a success to that spot, meaning that's one more success. As long as I roll greater than a 1, it's going to be one more success that I have. And in all of the different things you're rolling for, you don't really have a good sense for how many successes you need, but you definitely want as many as you can get.
So obviously there's a lot more involved in the game, but we don't want to get too into the weeds because we don't want to spoil too much about the game. This is really a game about exploration and discovering what your destiny is. And in order to describe that, we have to get more into what you're trying to do, and we don't want to do that. Just know that it's a game that's about exploration, it's puzzle solving, it's using the skill tree in order to enact very specific skill feats in the game, and trying to find items that can help you progress that story.
Yeah, this is a narrative-driven game that has more sort of a puzzle feel than many that I've ever played because you really are thinking about what everyone's doing and listening to see if you can find something out that can help you on your path.
Not to mention the app is really well done. It's slick, got voiceovers, so it gives you that thematic feel. Plus it's got some really cool ambient music in the game as well. So that is Time of Legends Destinies, a 1 to 3 player game, so it can be played solo if you so wish. 5 main campaigns in the base game and probably a variety of other things through stretch goals and the Kickstarter. If you have any questions about the game, make them in the comments below. Subscribe to us, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and everything else that we do. And we will catch you guys next time.
Bye-bye.